I haven't watched The Summer I Turned Pretty because I'm tired of being spoon-fed white dick. If you are a woman of color with a brain, then you would have noticed that the swirl agenda has been very prominent in media over the recent years. And I've touched on this topic in the past in regards to the swirl agenda, but in that video, I was more so talking about it in the context of dating in real life. But today's video is talking about the context within like film and TV. The Summer I Turned Pretty is a show based on a book, I believe, and it's basically about a Asian girl who likes these two white guys who are brothers. I honestly, I couldn't tell you anything more than the fact that it's an Asian girl with these two white guys who happen to be brothers. There's really, is there anything else to the story besides that? Who knows? This season has been very, very popular, and I've been seeing some edits about it. I've been seeing hashtags of Team Conrad or Team Jeremy, which I guess those are the names of the brothers. I think The Summer I Turned Pretty could easily be one of the greatest TV shows of all time. Some might consider it peak romance. It's probably a really, really good show, and perhaps I'm missing out by not watching it. But the reason why I just cannot find the will to watch this show, even though it's pretty much everywhere. If anything, I should be watching the show. If anything, I should be feeling some type of FOMO for not being in on the conversation around this show. But I just cannot find the will to watch this show because I just cannot stomach another interracial relationship in media. There's only so much white dick I can take. Is this the only way that women of color can be loved? Is if it's with here's some white dick. Here you go. Representation along with some white dick. I mean, I will tune in eventually. It does seem like a very juicy, interesting show. But as of right now, I'm making the conscious decision to not watch it. The last time I appreciated a swirl was during Challengers. And since then, I was like, you know what, guys? What else is there? And as much as I appreciate that we have more women of color that are filmmakers and writers, but what I've noticed is that the ones that are gaining the most popularity are the ones with the swirls. I have nothing against interracial dating. Interracial dating is not unrealistic, and I do understand that it should be represented in media because relationships like that do exist in real life. There are people out there who are in interracial relationships, and they also deserve to have some representation of their relationships in the media. But now that I'm seeing it more and more and more, it just feels like, damn, is that the only way that women of color can be loved is through their proximity to white men? If we were having a nice range of interracial dating with white men, with Latin men, with Arab men, with black men, if we were having a good range of, different types of relationships in media, then this video wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be making this video. And the reason why I feel a bit passionate about this is because it's very intentional. When you're dating a white man in real life, it can be for a plethora of reasons. Sometimes it can just be because of the area you live in, maybe your experiences with dating, maybe that's just who you naturally attract, right? However, when we are constantly seeing this in media, it's strange because these are just fictional characters. They don't have to be in an interracial relationship. They don't have to be in close proximity to white men all the time. These are not plots that have to happen. So knowing that people are making the active choice to constantly include white men in women of color stories is just when is enough enough? When can we have a break from this particular dynamic? And because this is so popular, I feel, meaning my opinion, meaning doesn't have to be true. I feel like constantly pushing these types of relationships in media feeds the narrative that this is the only way that women of color can experience romance is through their proximity to white men. There's no way that all of you coincidentally put the woman of color with a white man. Like there's somebody's fucking lying. Like somebody's fucking lying. If we were at least seeing a range in these types of interracial relationships, then I suppose it wouldn't be that big of a problem because we're seeing different types of relationships. But when you're constantly pushing the same type, it's like, what exactly are you trying to tell us? Which is why I found the TV show Forever so refreshing. Regardless of whether or not you like the show, regardless of whether you thought the show was good or not, doesn't matter. But just the fact that we finally got to see a popular show where it's a woman of color and her boyfriend isn't white, I was like, oh, finally. I didn't realize how much of these white men we've been seeing until I watched Forever. I was like, damn, like, we really haven't seen a POC relationship in a popular piece of media in a while. And as a woman of color, I'm happy that we're getting more and more representation in the media. However, why does that always have to come with some white guy? Like, why is a white guy always in the mix? It could be like, this girl, Zoe, she just moved to a different country and her parents died and she's just trying to navigate the world as a black woman who just lost her parents. And here's this white guy she's gonna date along the way. This Asian woman just got recruited to go to space. She's the first Asian woman to ever be an astronaut. But here's this white guy she's gonna date while she's on her way to space. Here's this Latina woman who's working in corporate and she's finally the CEO of the company. And here's her white husband. We're getting all this representation. We're getting these real stories with these dynamic characters. But here's this white guy who's also gonna tag along for the ride. And in some of these stories, she doesn't even need to have a love interest. She really doesn't. But if she is, it's probably gonna be a white guy. And one of the things that irrationally annoys me is that if we're gonna get all these white men, right? If we're gonna get all these white men in these stories, can they at least be fine shit? That's the thing that irritates me the most, low key, is that people are constantly trying to shove these ships down our throat, but it's not even a good looking white guy. It's not even a good looking white guy. And the girls who live for white dick will try to convince you that they're such a cute couple. But I'm like, bitch, the pasta and lobster type of girls, they love the swirls in the movies. Like they live for a fucking swirl in a show, bitch. Because these pasta and lobster girls want to be so badly chosen by white men in real life, that's why they jump for fucking joy when they see these random swirl relationships. Like, you would be happy to see the most gorgeous woman of color with any random white guy because that's what you're feeling for in real life. So who cares? Like, who cares what he looks like? He just has to be white. Who cares? That's the least you can do. Like, if you're really gonna shove these swirls down our throat, at least make the white guy some fine shit. And even though I'm not referring to reality shows, but I was really rooting for Nick and Alandria, not because of their chemistry, not because I watched the show. I don't really give a fuck about Love Island. I just really enjoyed seeing a beautiful black woman with some nice white fine shit. And I live for some of these ships. Some of these ships I really do enjoy. Like, bitch, Bones and all. That's my favorite swirl. That's my favorite swirl, and you cannot take it away from me. But I need to see range. Like, I need to see more range. Like, and some of these relationships that we're seeing in the media they don't even have chemistry. The white guy looks like shit standing next to her. And sometimes the woman of color in question in these characters are always biracial. So yes, you're only going to get representation through a mixed woman. And then on top of that, you're only ever going to be with a white guy. So yeah, enjoy the movie. Have fun. And because it's so intentional, you cannot convince me that the women writing and making these films and TV shows aren't to a certain extent projecting their own personal choices onto these characters. And if the story directly relates to them and their real life, for example, in like Past Lives with Celine Song, I believe, her casting a white man made a lot of sense, not only to the story, but also because she wrote it about her real life, if I'm correct. It just seems as though these filmmakers and these writers are projecting their own personal preference onto these characters. Like, there's no way all of the characters you've written always end up with a white guy by accident. Yes, your art is an extension of yourself. However, if you're trying to write stories that don't directly connect to you, I don't see why they constantly have to have the same types of characters. High Fidelity, where she had all of these love interests, right? That's the basis of the show, is that she's dating all these people and reflecting on those past relationships. And majority of those love interests were white. Which makes me slightly confused because this show is set in New York. And from what I see, I don't live in New York, but from what I see, New York is a very diverse city. So you mean to tell me that out of everybody in the city, she just happens to mostly date white people? You cannot tell me that's not intentional. You just can't. And sometimes the woman of color in these stories will eventually have a POC love interest. She will, and you'll think, finally, some range. But what you don't know is that this POC love interest is only a tool or the bridge to get her back to the white guy. Regardless of how much chemistry she has with this man of color, regardless of how much the man of color is objectively a better partner for her than this white guy, the relationship will not last. It will not last because the end game is her and this white guy. Even if you're like, okay, but her relationship with this man of color was going really well, like what happened? It's because she's supposed to end up with the whitey. And I will admit that it's not always about preference or the writer or the filmmaker trying to project their own life or choices onto these characters. But I think it's also because people who are making these shows pay attention to what's popular and what's not. And clearly, the swirl is really popular right now. And whenever there's a swirl in media, it's almost guaranteed to have some type of popularity based off of that alone. So it's not super surprising that some people intentionally make their male interests white, because that's clearly what's gonna get numbers. That's what's gonna make money. Because you'll see some of these shows that are really, really good and they'll get canceled, and you're like, how are they getting canceled? There wasn't enough swirl. There was not enough swirl in that show, unfortunately. And what I hate about these conversations is that sometimes people will say, well, at least we're getting some representation, at least like we're shown being loved in media. We don't usually get that, but we need to demand more. We can't just be accepting these crumbs because we never get anything anyways. Love you to the summer and back. It's not the winter, but you frozen